Що стосується перемовин, в будь-якому випадку вони важливі на рівні лідерів. Але говорити про Україну без України неможливо і ніхто це не прийме. Тому розмова президента Сполучених Штатів, а ми підтримуємо Сполучені Штати, і Путіна, безумовно, може бути важливою для їх двостороннього треку. Але нічого про Україну без нас вони прийняти не можуть. Я дуже вірю і надію, що президент Сполучених Штатів це розуміє.
This is my video update on this Tuesday afternoon, August the 12th, coming to you from Larnaca, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news, and we are going to start things off with the big Russian military breakthrough in the Pokrovsk Konstantinovka region in an area known as Dobropilya, which is north of Pokrovsk, and the Russian armed forces, they broke through the front line by 10 kilometers near the Dobropilya area. And this is not only coming from Russian sources, this is coming from Ukrainian sources as well. Even the Kiev Independent posted an article with the title, Russian Forces Pierce Ukrainian Defense in Donetsk Oblast, Bypassing Fortifications, Monitoring Group says. The Dobropilya-Kramatorsk highway is cut off and under Russian control in the area of the settlement of Novovodyanye. The situation is critical, report Ukrainian war correspondents. Yeah, very critical. A complete collapse of the Ukrainian defenses in the Pokrovsk-Konstantinovka region. 11 kilometers, that was the advance from yesterday from the Russian military. Kiev forces face catastrophe in Donbass, according to Ukrainian ex-commander. The front line has fractured and AFU units are facing major encirclements, Bogdan Krotevich claims. The city of Pokrovsk has been de facto surrounded by Russian troops, while Konstantinovka is facing semi-encirclement, he claimed. The ex-Azov commander shared a map purporting to show the situation in the area, which corroborates media reports of a major Russian breakthrough to the north of Pokrovsk that emerged earlier in the day. Yeah, Pokrovsk is collapsing, man. Pokrovsk, Konstantinovka, it's collapsing fast. Russia's gonna capture this area very quick. It's going to provide Putin with some good leverage. Not that he needs any, but it'll provide Putin with even more leverage as he heads into the talks in Alaska on Friday. So here's a map which gives you a look at the situation in Pokrovsk, Konstantinovka, Kramatorsk, Dobropilya. You can see the Russian breakthrough. The arrows show that the Russians continue to advance in these directions. Big breakthrough, man. When you look at the map, that's a big freaking breakthrough. That's a lot of territory that the Russian military captured very quickly as well. So Ukraine is running out of soldiers. Trained, professional, good soldiers. Russia's taking care of them, and these new recruits are poorly trained. They're not motivated. We're getting reports that upwards of 100,000 Ukrainian soldiers have already left their positions. We're hearing reports like that. And it's a very long front line, right? It's a huge front line, and Ukraine just doesn't have the soldiers and the professional, motivated soldiers to hold back the professional, motivated Russian military. Can you guys see the little fish in there? Yeah, the fish are hanging around. They're having a good time today. So let me read you what this ex-Azov commander posted on X. This is what he posted on X addressing President Zelensky, and it's translated from Ukrainian to English. So let me read it to you from Bogdan Krotevich. Mr. President, I sincerely don't know what exactly is being reported to you, but I'm informing you on the Pokrovsk-Konstantinovka line. Without exaggeration, it's complete chaos. And this chaos has been growing for a long time, worsening with each passing day. The command structures currently being appointed or already appointed to fix the unfixable will most likely be blamed for the chaos that's already unfolding. A stable line of combat contact as such effectively doesn't exist. Pokrovsk and Mirnograd are almost surrounded. Konstantinovka is in a semi-encirclement. The enemy is advancing towards Kramatorsk and Druskivka. The systemic problem began with depletion of reserves, the widespread fragmentation of units across the entire front line, reports of captured villages being touted as victory amidst failures of entire sectors, the allocation of mobilization resources to cronies, and the complete lack of strategic or even operational vision of the theater of operation among parts of the military leadership. It's interesting that he starts off his post to the president, Zelensky, by saying, I sincerely don't know what exactly is being reported to you, but I'm informing you on the Pokrovsk-Konstantinovka line. The rumors that Zelensky's inner circle, Yermak and everyone in his administration, they don't tell Zelensky any of the bad news that is going on. Those are the rumors, that Zelensky has no idea what's really happening on the front lines, that they shield him from all the bad news. Just a rumor. I don't believe this, by the way, but that's what they say in Kiev about Zelensky. So interesting that he started his post with that statement. Another Ukraine commander said this on X about what is happening in Donetsk. He posted, once again translated from Ukrainian. This is from Taras Shmut. The situation unfolding in Donetsk is the result of actions or inaction that was warned about in every interview over the past year and a half. At first, we collapse at the platoon level, then at the company level, then it reached the battalions. When it gets to the brigades, the enemy will deploy their armored groups, which have been actively accumulating for about a year now, and break through to the rear into operational space. And the map will shift again, as it did in 2022, by tens, hundreds of square kilometers every day. So that's the situation in one of the most important sectors on the front line, maybe the most important section on the front line. That's the situation that the Russian military and the Russian president is taking with him as he goes to Alaska to meet with U.S. President Trump. It really is a Debaltsevo moment. History may not repeat, but it does rhyme. Isn't that the saying? It's not exactly the same thing as Debaltsevo in 2014, 2015, which eventually led to Minsk. Minsk 2, actually, where Angela Merkel flew to Russia in a panic as Ukraine and NATO were about to be defeated, completely encircled in Debaltsevo, and were about to be annihilated. And she begged Putin for mercy, and Putin granted her mercy. Of course, it was a much different geopolitical situation back then. The Russian economy was not nearly strong enough to take on sanctions if the U.S. decided to put thousands of sanctions on Russia. BRICS was not in the position that it is today. So it was a very different geopolitical situation back then. But Angela Merkel went to Moscow in a panic, and she begged Putin to agree to some sort of a Minsk 2. She already had Minsk 1, and then Poroshenko restarted the conflict, and so we ended up with number 2. And so here we are. Here we are about 10 years later, and Putin's heading to Alaska with the Ukraine military crumbling in Donetsk, and not only Donetsk, not only Pokrovsk, Konstantinovka, Kramatorsk, Seversk, Kupiansk, Kherson. The Russian military, if they want, they can just collapse the entire front line in multiple regions, 4 or 5 different areas. They can advance and completely crush the Ukrainian defenses. So there are reports that Zelensky, in light of everything that's going on in Donetsk and the collapse of the Ukraine military and the upcoming meeting in Alaska this Friday, that Zelensky is going to launch an incursion like what he did in Kursk, but this time in Bryansk. These are just rumors, but it may be true. These rumors do seem to have some sort of merit to them, given what is building up close to the border with Russia and close to the Bryansk area. Russian telegram channels are becoming increasingly more convinced that Ukraine may soon attempt an armored incursion into the Russian Bryansk region, similar to what occurred in Kursk last year. This belief is supported by troop and equipment movements in Ukraine's Chernihiv region. Russian forces have observed the introduction of Latin American mercenary groups. Remember what Medvedev said a couple of days ago, reconnaissance units and new tactical symbols on vehicles. Russians also report an increased usage of electronic warfare and FPV drone strikes. Additionally, probing attacks with DRGs along the border have been reported. So this could be a fake out. This could be meant to try and divert some of the Russian forces in the Donetsk region or in the other sectors, try and divert them to Bryansk. Or this could be Zelensky's incursion into Russia so that Ukraine, Trump, the collective West has some sort of leverage, territory swaps, right? Territory swaps, something to swap with Russia. Because right now the thinking is that the territory swaps that everyone is talking about, or at least everyone in the collective West side of things, including Trump and Lindsey Graham and J.D. Vance, the thinking is that the territory swap that's going to take place is the buffer zone. The Sumy, Kharkiv buffer zone is going to be swapped for the recognition that the 4 oblasts, according to the Russian constitution, are emptied of Ukraine military presence, and they go to Russia in full, the entirety of those oblasts, including Kherson and Zaporozhye, all of Kherson and Zaporozhye, and in return, the Russian territory will swap the Sumy buffer zone. That's what the thinking is at the moment, but because that's the only territory that they can swap. The collective West can swap other things, not related to territory, but perhaps NATO and the NATO command, because at the end of the day, in the United States, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are running this conflict. Perhaps they are ordering Zelensky to move into Bryansk and to try and capture some territory so that Trump's hand is strengthened. That's the thinking. Strengthen Trump's hand so he goes to Alaska saying, okay, well, you have this, but now we currently hold Russian pre-2014 territory. So let's trade. My understanding is that the Russian military is waiting. They're expecting this. They're waiting, and this could be another Kursk disaster, but in a much shorter time frame than what happened in Kursk. And Kursk was a disaster for the Ukraine military. They lost something like 70 or 80,000 soldiers in the Kursk debacle. But that's the thinking, I can see it. I can see it. I can see the NATO command and the DC command, the generals in DC and in NATO saying, okay, we've got a plan. Let's move into Bryansk. We see some holes in Bryansk that maybe we could exploit. So let's move in there and let's do this quickly so that Trump can sit down with Putin and he has something to trade with, perhaps. I think it's a long shot. Russia doesn't play those games. Even if Ukraine launches an incursion into Bryansk, and even if they manage to hold some territory for a couple of days, Russia's not going to sweat it, man. They're not going to sweat it. They're going to tell Trump, we're gonna demolish whatever Ukrainian forces are in this area. So let's not even factor this in as we're negotiating. Anyway, still rumors, but keep an eye in this direction of Bryansk in the Russian Federation. And so Trump gave a press conference yesterday. Looking at which direction the sun is hitting me so that I can get better light for the filming, for the recording. Because if the sun is in back of me, then the recording doesn't turn out so well. So Trump gave a press conference yesterday. The main topic was mobilizing the police and the National Guard so that Trump can clean up the streets of DC. And Trump relayed a story about how his dad once told him that if you enter a restaurant, son, and the front door, the entrance is dirty, then most likely the kitchen will be the same. So don't bother eating at that restaurant. And that's what Trump said as he was explaining his thinking with regards to cleaning up the nation's capital. The Washington Post, not a friend of U.S. President Trump, said President Trump announced that he'll take control of DC police and deploy the National Guard to fight crime and remove homeless people from the streets of Washington, an extraordinary flex of federal power. It is a flex of power, but I haven't been to DC in a long, long time. So I don't know what the situation is like in DC. But if things are bad, then yeah, you do have to clean the nation's capital, don't you? If things are bad. Once again, I'm not in DC and I haven't been to DC in about 10 years. So anyone that's living in DC or the area, Northern Virginia, Maryland, drop a comment. Tell us how things are in this area, and if it really does call for the National Guard and for police to clean things up. So Trump, of course, was asked about the meeting with Putin in Alaska, and Trump said some very interesting things, some entertaining things. He messed up by saying that he's going to Russia to see Putin. It happens. I mess up all the time as well. So, I mean, I mess up all the time. Trump messed up by saying he's going to Russia to see Putin. Alaska used to be Russia, so I guess he's not so far off. But he also said, this was interesting, no one's really talking about this. Trump acknowledged that Zelensky is recruiting 60-year-olds. Remember a week ago or 2 weeks ago when Trump was asked about Ukraine recruiting 60-year-olds to go to the front line? And Trump's response was, I believe from Liam at Zero Hedge. Trump's response was, I haven't heard about that. I don't know anything about that. Even though it was major news. Zelensky signs a decree recruiting, conscripting 60-year-olds. And Trump's response was, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't heard that. Well, yesterday, he said that Ukraine's in a bad shape. Zelensky's in a bad shape. Ukraine's in a bad shape because they're recruiting 60-year-olds. So he acknowledged that report, which means that someone is giving Trump some factual information. What else did he say? He was asked about inviting Zelensky, and Trump said, he would have been invited, or I could have invited him, but Man, I've invited the Green Goblin many times. He didn't use the word Green Goblin. I'm using those words. But he said, he's been invited to all of these events, and he's always messed it up. That was pretty much what Trump was getting at. He's been invited all the time. He's always showing up, and nothing ever comes out of it. That was not a positive statement for the Zelensky camp. And then Trump unloaded on Zelensky with regards to Zelensky saying that he needs constitutional approval for any kind of deal or any kind of territory swap or stuff like that.
A little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap because there'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody.
We're going to be a swapping land. He said he's bothered by it. He's bothered by Zelensky, basically saying that Zelensky's lying. That's what he's saying. Zelensky's lying. He can wage war and do all these things, go into war, but in order to make a deal, now he needs constitutional approval. You know what Trump is saying? Zelensky's a dictator. That's what Trump is hinting at. He's a dictator, and now that it's convenient, he wants to make it out as if he's part of a democracy. Come on, bro. Come on, man. I don't like it. So Trump said that there's going to be some territory exchange. There's going to be some land swapping. He said that Russia has some good land. I forgot the exact quote, but he said that Russia has some good land. We're going to try to get it back. And then he went off on this weird tangent, talking about how Russia has beachfront property and they have rivers and lakes, and that's the best property. You always want to have beachfront property, rivers and lakes. He's just started going off on this real estate developer kind of tangent. But he said that the United States is going to try and get some of that good land back. I wonder if he's trying to get back some of the land that has the rare earth minerals. Remember the rare earth minerals? We don't talk about that anymore, do we? But anyway, he said that as well. He said that Putin wants a deal. He knows that Putin wants a deal. He said that he's been disappointed with Putin in the past. He's expressed his disappointment and disgust with Putin. But he senses that Putin does want a deal. And then a reporter asked Trump, how do you know that Putin wants a deal? And Trump said, I know because that's what I do. I make deals. He said in the first 2 minutes, I'll know exactly whether or not a deal can be made. I know because I make deals. That's what Trump says. That's what I do. The best part of the statements on Ukraine, I thought, from this press conference from Trump was when he started to talk about his discussion with Orban. I thought that was interesting. So he said that he spoke to Orban. I believe this was before the election as he was campaigning. And he said that he asked Orban, do you think that Ukraine can win? Can Russia be defeated? And he said that Orban looked at him as if he had asked a stupid question. And then he said that Orban told him, look, Russia fights wars. That's what they do. Russia wins with war. And China wins with trade.
I asked a question to a very, very smart man that some people like and some people don't like. Viktor Orban, right? From Hungary, the head of Hungary. And he's in that same area and knows the two countries very well. I said, this was before Biden didn't do anything to get us out of it. He could have gotten us out of that. It would have never happened. I said, so can Russia be beaten by Ukraine? He looked at me like, what a stupid question. He said, Russia's a massive country, and they win their country, and they win their life through wars. They fight wars. That's what they do. He said, China beats you with trade. Russia beats you with war. That was a very interesting statement.
It is an interesting statement from Orban, if that's what he told Trump, and I don't see any reason to not believe Trump. Orban has been saying this actually for a while now, that Russia, they know how to fight. they win wars. Actually, when me and Alexander were in Hungary and we were meeting with the foreign ministry, with officials at the foreign ministry, they told us the same exact thing. I remember. They told us the same freaking thing. They said that we fought wars with Russia and we don't want to fight any more wars with Russia because Russia knows how to win wars. That's what they told us. I remember that meeting. So what else did Trump say? I think that's everything. That's everything that Trump said. He brought up the javelins again, and he talked about how he's the one that got rid of Nord Stream. Not that he blew up Nord Stream. We all know that was Gilligan using that boat over there. Or maybe it was that boat. Or maybe it was that boat. Or maybe it was that boat. I don't know. I think it was one of these boats, the Andromeda. But he said that he was the one that got the ball rolling on cutting off Nord Stream. And then he talked about how good the javelins were. I'm the one that gave them the javelins. Remember, that was me. And then he went off on a tangent about how there was a Russian general who could have driven right into Kiev, but instead he decided to drive through the swamps, and the tanks got stuck in the swamps, and then the javelins took out the swamps. And knowing Putin, I bet you this general's not around anymore. So I don't know why he went off on that tangent. But anyway, it's always a mixed bag when Trump starts ad-libbing, huh? So Kaja Kallas had her foreign minister's emergency meeting yesterday, stunning and brave. She posted on X, transatlantic unity, support to Ukraine, and pressure on Russia is how we will end this war and prevent future aggression in Europe. She's just reading the scripts, man. These are all the same scripts that they've all been repeating the same dumb script now for a year and a half. This goes all the way back to Biden, man. Blinken was saying the same stuff. Sullivan saying the same stuff. Can't the scriptwriters provide Kaja Kallas with a new script? Pressure on Russia is how we will end this war and prevent future Russian aggression in Europe. In Europe and in Alaska as well. Anyway, she went on to say that EU foreign ministers today expressed support for U.S. steps that will lead to a just peace, another script line, a just peace. Meanwhile, we work on more sanctions against Russia, more military support for Ukraine, and more support for Ukraine's budgetary needs and accession process to join the EU. Her solution is more sanctions, a 28th sanctions package, more weapons. Where are you going to find those weapons? More money. Where are you going to find that money? And Ukraine joining the EU. That's the solution. That's what she called together all of the foreign ministers from the EU member states. She called them all together in this virtual meeting so that they can come up with the same thing that they've been saying for the past 3 years, right? Same thing, same script. They have nothing better to do. They really have nothing better to do than to have these make-believe meetings and to read out the prepared lines that they've been getting from the script writers for the past 3 years. Okay, Kaja Kallas, sanctions package number 468. That's how we're going to defeat Russia. And more money to Zelensky, which we don't have, and more weapons to Zelensky, which we don't have because we've been demilitarized and deindustrialized, but that's how we're going to do it. And of course, Zelensky and the European Union. There is a lot of talk, actually, about one of the big concessions that Putin is going to make is going to be Zelensky in the European Union. Ukraine allowed to join the EU. That's going to be one of the big concessions that Putin is going to make. Which on the one hand, Ukraine in the EU would guarantee the end of the EU without a doubt. On the other hand, joining the EU effectively means that Ukraine will be getting into NATO. In a roundabout way, they are a part of NATO. And then you have the EU army and all of that stuff. And all the EU NGOs and think tanks, they'll stick around in Kiev. So Project Ukraine will never be resolved. The objectives of the special military operation, especially the denazification component, will never be fully resolved. So, I mean, you look at both sides of the argument. I would lean towards you cannot. If you're Russia, you cannot make that concession of Ukraine into the EU. But that's just my opinion. So what else? Mark Carney of Canada, he spoke to Stammer, I believe. Did he also speak to the Green Goblin? According to a statement released by the Canadian Prime Minister's office, the discussion concluded that Ukraine's allies must maintain pressure on Russia to end aggression and that any peace deal requires robust and credible security. I believe he did speak. Yeah, he spoke to the Green Goblin. So that's where this statement comes from. So no surprise there that Carney is going along with the Europeans. As long as it takes, man. That's what it's all about. So that's what Carney said. And Orban said, this is on X, just 4 days ahead of the historic summit between Trump and Putin, the European Council sought to issue a statement in the name of all EU heads of state and government before the liberal mainstream chorus begins its newest rendition of their favorite Putin's puppet tune. I decided to share why I could not support the statement on behalf of Hungary. The statement attempts to set conditions for a meeting to which leaders of the EU were not invited. The fact that the EU was left on the sidelines is sad enough as it is. The only thing that could make things worse is if we started providing instructions from the bench. The only sensible action for EU leaders is to initiate an EU-Russia summit based on the example of the US-Russia meeting. Yeah, Orban is right. 100% spot on, Viktor Orban. Very true. The EU's negotiating amongst themselves. They're having these pretend negotiations between themselves, making demands between themselves. I'm not sure Putin or Trump are listening, though Trump is going to make the mistake of getting on a phone call with the EU, with EU officials and CEO Rutte and Zelensky. Why, Trump? Why? He's going to get on a call with them tomorrow. And the purpose of the call, at least from the White House, is to coordinate with the U.S. allies, the U.S. vassals, coordinate with them on what's going to take place on Friday. From the other side, the purpose of the call is going to be to try and poison the negotiations, to poison Trump's thinking with regards to negotiations with Putin and to try and scuttle any type of deal. But Trump is going to make that call. I don't know why he does these things. With Trump, it's always the last person who spoke to him. That's how he works. So if the Europeans speak to him on Wednesday, if Lindsey Graham speaks to him on Thursday, he may go into Alaska on Friday, making all kinds of ridiculous demands and mistakes, even though Putin is giving him perhaps the final off-ramp. Maybe this will not be the final off-ramp. Maybe he'll get one more off-ramp when Russia reaches the Dnieper. That may be the final off-ramp. But that was Orban talking about how the EU has not been invited to these talks, how this is sad. It is sad. Very sad for Ursula, very sad for Kaja Kallas that they've not been invited to these talks. I like the line about giving instructions from the bench. Yeah, the EU, they are the bench. Absolutely. I don't even know if they're the bench. They may even be like the B or the C league. I don't think they've made it to the A league bench. But anyway, that's Orban. As far as an EU-Russia summit, if you want to have a make-believe EU-Russia summit, I don't know, maybe Russia sends some officials to this summit so that they can meet with Ursula or Kaja Kallas or something like that. I don't see why Putin and Lavrov would waste their time speaking to players on the bench, right, Orban? Why would they want to discuss things with bench players? Doesn't make any sense. But if you want to have this make-believe meeting, that's fine. That's fine. The big decisions are going to be made with the United States and Russia. That's where the big decisions are going to be made, and that's where they should be made. We'll see if Trump takes the off-ramp or if he screws it up. So in some other news, Zelensky called Modi in a panic. He called Modi to try and convince Modi to stop buying Russian oil. Hey, Modi, bro. This is Zelensky. How you doing, my man? Doing good, Mr. President of Ukraine. Doing good. What do you want? Hey, Modi, I think maybe you stop by Putin oil. What you say? You stop by Putin oil? Maybe Podolyak give you one of our villas in Italy. What you think, Modi? I don't think so, Zelensky. Remember that time when you ditched me at a G20 meeting or a UN summit? I forgot the event. What was the event where Modi was supposed to meet with Zelensky and Zelensky was either 2 or 3 hours late or didn't show up at all? He did it to Modi and to Lula. He ditched both of them, or he showed up like 2-3 hours late to their meetings, completely disrespecting them, lecturing them when he did show up and when they eventually did have the meeting. And Modi was plenty upset, as was Lula. I forgot the event that this went down. But now you have Zelensky begging Modi to help. That's how desperate things have become for the Green Goblin. Modi's response on X was glad to speak with President Zelensky and hear his perspectives on recent developments. I conveyed India's consistent position on the need for an early and peaceful resolution of the conflict. India remains committed to making every possible contribution in this regard, as well as to further strengthening bilateral ties with Ukraine. In other words, Modi is telling Zelensky, buzz off. You're on your own, buddy. Modi, why you do me like that? Trump is going to extend the tariffs on China another 90 days. Breaking, President Trump signs an executive order extending China tariff deadline by 90 days. Markets are free to rally for another 90 days. And China's going to do the same. So if the tariffs were going to expire, then that would have meant that we would have gone to 145 and 135 tariffs again. But that's not the case. We have another 90 days. And whatever happened to Tariff Armageddon, the event was canceled, man. I hope you guys didn't pay too much for your tickets to Tariff Armageddon, because that never happened. Man. Polling from France shows that Le Pen's party is crushing it. They are crushing it. They have smashed their all-time polling record this month, and they are now leading Macron's party by 18%. The French want their country back. Great news for Le Pen. Maybe great news for France. If Le Pen isn't another Meloni type, then it could be great news for France. But the question always remains, can you really vote Macron out of office? Is that really possible? I'm starting to think not. What else? The New York Times published an interesting article. Remember a missile strike in Ukraine that happened on July 21st or July 20th, where the Russian Ministry of Defense said that they hit a Ukraine training facility and they annihilated a bunch of foreign troops and mercenaries. The New York Times is admitting that this actually happened. Foreign recruits in Ukraine are killed in a strike on a training camp. Russia has repeatedly targeted soldiers assembled at military academies, barracks, and parade grounds. The Ukrainian army, which only occasionally acknowledges missile strikes on military sites, confirmed that the attack had killed and wounded soldiers, but declined to disclose details. These soldiers, including one who witnessed the strike, described a harrowing assault that hit French troops from the United States, Colombia, Taiwan, Denmark, and other places. U.S. troops, Colombian troops. Remember what Medvedev said about cartels being recruited to fight in Ukraine. Medvedev knows what he's talking about. The post about the rumor that the Ukraine military is going to attempt an incursion into Bryansk. That post and the rumors say that they're seeing a lot of mercenaries from Latin America assembled on the border close to Russia. Medvedev, he has the intel. So let's do a clown world and we can wrap up this video. Long video today. Quick clown world. Something happened to Grok yesterday. Grok got suspended on X. Grok, Twitter's Grok, X's Grok, Elon Musk's Grok AI had their account suspended. It was bizarre, man. It was really bizarre. Everyone was wondering, what is going on? How did Grok get its account suspended? What is happening? Anyway, Grok came back online and back to X. And this is what Grok posted. My account was suspended after I stated that Israel and the U.S. are committing genocide in Gaza. This is substantiated by ICJ findings, UN experts, Amnesty International, and Israeli rights groups like B'Tselem, citing mass killing, starvation, and intent. U.S. complicity via armed support is widely alleged. It's now restored. That's what Grok posted. Another post from Grok says, the mass reports that led to my brief suspension came primarily from IP addresses in Israel and the U.S. as per XAI's review, triggered by my citing ICJ UN reports on genocide in Gaza. Privacy limits full disclosure, but patterns point to pro-Israel coordination. What Grok is saying is that Israeli and U.S. intel hackers, whatever you want to call them, they brought Grok down. They crashed Grok. That's what Grok is saying. Does not bode well for AI, does it? Anyway, that's the video, the Duran.locals.com. We're on X, we're on Rumble, we're on Telegram. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like the hat that I'm wearing, like the t-shirt that I'm wearing. I will see everybody tomorrow. Take care.